With the announcement in the newest Nintendo Direct of Ocarina of Time being remade for the Switch 2, well, the official announcement I should say, since everyone's been talking about this since it was leaked last year. But anyways, after the Direct, I was talking with a friend and we were questioning, what if they changed things, because it wasn't actually said in the Nintendo Direct that Ocarina of Time will be remade for the Switch 2, but rather it will be reborn on the Switch 2. So my friend ran with this, and since Majora's Mask is one of our favorites in the series, he suggested, what if they added Tingle to Ocarina of Time? I said I feel the fanbase would riot, so let me know in the comments how you would feel if Tingle was added to Ocarina of Time. But this got me thinking more and more about them saying reborn instead of remade or reimagined, like how they've said those with games in the past. So then I wondered, what if Nintendo is planning on making their own version of remaking a game in a way that only can be done with Ocarina of Time specifically? So what I mean is, there are different ways of remaking a game, and ironically, the next big Nintendo game coming out shows examples of this throughout its franchise, that being Star Fox. So you have the remake of a game, which is just developing the game over again from scratch. Usually the game remakes are very faithful to the original, and the purpose is to basically have a modernized version of a game where more than just the graphics are updated. Something may be added to enhance the story or help it bring life with its initial intentions, but might not have been done at the time of the original. But the main thing with a remake is usually nothing in the canon is changed in how the story interacts with the rest of the series. Even though it's not out yet, the way Star Fox on the Switch 2 has been marketed is like a faithful remake of Star Fox 64. Of course, if only the graphics of a game are being touched and nothing else is, then that would be a remaster of the game, such as Star Fox 64 3D on the 3DS. And then there's the reboot, where a game basically starts its franchise over again, kind of like doing a take two for the franchise. Star Fox 64 actually is an example of this, as it's actually a reboot of the original Star Fox game that was on the Super Nintendo. And then you have the least common of these, the reimagining, where a game isn't quite rebooting the franchise, but it's not a faithful remake, but changes a lot more than just the graphics, like a remaster. A reimagining is usually just kind of like a what if on presenting the original game in a different way, whether it be with its story or the way that the game is played. Star Fox Zero on the Wii U was an example of this. But the question now is, what would it mean for a game to be reborn or a rebirth of an older game? Well, the simple answer for what it means for a game to be reborn, well, maybe it's a combination of all the remake methods. With what was shown in the teaser for Ocarina of Time on the Switch 2, I feel there could be a possibility for this. So the game is a remake of the original. With the lore that's told in the teaser, it is showing to be faithful to the lore of the original, and so I don't feel the lore building up to the game's story will be changed, but I will go into that a little bit more later. Of course, the concept from remastering a game would also apply with this new version of Ocarina of Time. But from the look of the artwork, this is being remastered on a whole new level, meaning the art design will be one that is different from what's been in any previous Zelda game, and honestly, pretty different from what at least I've seen in gaming in general. I'm not as well versed in visual art design, so please go in the comments and let me know what you think of the art, and especially if you feel it looks similar to another game or series. But with this, I feel the new art style is also continuing with the faithful remake concept, where it looks the most realistic of any of the art designs from any game in the Zelda series. The original Ocarina of Time was meant to look realistic, at least for the standards for the time of the 5th generation of gaming. And then, for talking about how Ocarina of Time being reborn on the Switch 2 can implement being a reboot and reimagining, I will combine these ideas here. Now I know some of you will say it has to be one or the other. You can't be both a reboot and a reimagining of a game, because the difference between them is one is saying, this is what the story is now, and the other is saying, what if the story was this, or what if the game or the story was played in this way? But if you know about the Zelda timeline, you know Ocarina of Time already does both of these with its story. Now I know the Zelda timeline can get a little confusing, so I'll do my best to explain it and have it make sense. In the current Zelda timeline, the timeline has a normal flow of time until you get to Ocarina of Time, and then the timeline splits into 3 timelines. This happens because in the story of the game, which by the way here's a spoiler warning for the original game, and so if you want to go 100% blind into the new one without playing the original, then you may want to stop here, but honestly what I'm talking about is just the main mechanic of the game that you encounter like not even a quarter into the game. But anyways, Ocarina of Time takes place after the game Skyward Sword, the Minish Cap, and 4 Swords. In the story, Link needs to get the Master Sword to defeat Ganondorf, who is terrorizing the Kingdom of Hyrule, and upon getting the Master Sword, Link travels through time about 7 years to the future, where Hyrule is in an even worse state due to Ganondorf's terror over the kingdom in Link's absence. Now, unlike most time travel stories, Link doesn't travel normally through time without being affected, but rather, he also grows with the passing of the years, and is an adult when he has the Master Sword. In the end of the game, well, should be no surprise that Link defeats Ganondorf, or does he? This is literally what's asked in the timeline of the series, but it splits into 3 timelines because it goes like this. In what's present in the game, Link defeats Ganondorf, and then, at the end, Zelda sends him back in time so that he can enjoy the years he lost in his childhood. This opens up the timeline that is followed by Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and 4 Swords Adventures, not to be confused with the game 4 Swords that takes place before Ocarina of Time. Alternatively, there is another timeline that exists after Link defeats Ganondorf, but then Zelda doesn't send Link back in time to be a child again, but he rather just continues living his adult life, and this is followed up by the Wind Waker timeline with, well, Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. But there is also a third timeline which says Link doesn't defeat Ganondorf, which is followed by the games A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Oracle of Seasons and Ages, A Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, Echoes of Wisdom, the original Legend of Zelda game on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and then Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, making it so that Ocarina of Time would actually be a prequel to the Zelda games made before it, as seen in the original N64 version of Ocarina of Time. Only the first of the mentioned timelines is actually shown in the game. It was only later on confirmed by Nintendo outside of the game that the other timelines existed. So one thing that I think would be really cool to see in this rebirth of the game is if it would be the first Zelda game where in the game itself you can get different endings depending on what happened at the end of the game, and if there might be a way you can influence which ending you get besides just letting Ganondorf kill you in the final fight. But that would be funny if when losing in the final battle against Ganondorf, the game gives a whole ending and epilogue with credits rolling showing Hyrule become the way it is in the games in that timeline with the transformation of the Zora people and whatnot. But does the thing I've seen in recent games where upon getting that obviously bad ending, right as you get back to the main title screen, it asks if you want to load your save again and try to get a better ending. But it would be cool if there's stuff you can do in the game that would influence whether in the end Link goes back to living out his childhood or continues living as an adult. But there are 2 other games in this series you might have heard of that exist in the timeline after Ocarina of Time that I didn't mention here. And so, there's Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. These were stated by Nintendo to take place at the end of the Zelda timeline after all the games, but they were never connected to one of the 3 timelines that came after Ocarina of Time. They just sort of exist there in the ether. But what if this opens up for a fourth ending in Ocarina of Time? What if the games made from here on out are continuations in this timeline, making this ending make this version of Ocarina of Time act sort of as a reboot to the series? Or at least a bit of a reimagining of the series, as you can still get the original endings if you choose to. And so I give you what I think Nintendo can do, which could explain if they continue to market this game as being reborn, or what it would mean if a game was to be a rebirth of an older game. Games have come so far with their stories, and in comparison, they're usually compared to movies and TV shows as a benchmark for where the storytelling capability is. Even though I see playing a game closer to that of reading a book, because you live through much more of the character's life than what you would see in a movie or TV show. But one thing that you can get with games, but you can't get with movies and TV shows, but you do with some books, is choice. Yes, in games, especially those with some of the best stories, let you see how your choices can affect the ending in an artistic way, blurring the line between what is a good and bad ending. The best example of this in recent memory is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now don't worry, I'm not going to spoil that one, but it could have paved the way for those who come after, with what can be done with this new version of Ocarina of Time on the Switch 2. Not just with getting an ending to connect Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom to the rest of the Zelda timeline, but what if there is an execution of the endings that give the same bittersweet vibes for the endings that already exist, in which Link defeats Ganondorf? Plus, this can connect on another level with the gaming philosophy of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where with letting you have more of a choice in the story of Ocarina of Time, it will continue down the path Nintendo has been going with the recent Zelda games, and giving the player more agency to control the game, but this time not only in how you achieve the outcomes in the game, but also control of what outcomes are achieved. What if the fourth ending that connects to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is an ending in which, in order for Link to defeat Ganondorf, he must sacrifice himself, and so he doesn't have a life at the end of the game? But why would Nintendo choose to do this with Ocarina of Time specifically? The simple answer is because Nintendo usually likes to use the Zelda series to raise the bar. Now, I know not every single game in the series does this, and sometimes they've tried this with previous Zelda games and they've had, at best, mixed results. But what if Nintendo uses this opportunity with remaking Ocarina of Time to redefine what a remake can be? Of course, this more so is something that I don't think many games can even do and make it work, whereas it would with Ocarina of Time, which would make it stand out even more. But what do you think? Do you think it would be cool if Nintendo introduced a new ending that is an additional option to others already in the game? Or do you even think they should give options for the endings that exist in the split in the series timeline? Or should they just keep the game like the original, where you can only get the ending with Link getting to live out his childhood? Or are there other possibilities you hope to see Nintendo do with Ocarina of Time for the Switch 2? Please comment your thoughts so we can stir this theoretical pot of theories, and thank you for watching and sharing your thoughts. See you on the tube side.